But the reason there were no other options is because anybody that played in that era would tell you there could not possibly be another option because Michael Jordan was head and shoulders above them all. The obvious, you do know that MJ has 6 titles, right? And LeBron has 4. You do know that, right? You do know that MJ was undefeated in all 6 NBA Finals appearances. Do you know that? You do know that Michael Jordan never allowed an NBA Finals series to get to a 7th game. Did you know that? I'm sure you did. Did you know he's a 10-time champion? And LeBron has won a scoring title 1 time? Did you know he's a 9-time first-team all-defensive player? LeBron James did that 5 times. Did you know that Michael Jordan is the former Defensive Player of the Year, 1988? LeBron James has never won a Defensive Player of the Year. We're talking about what you do on both sides of the court, and we're talking about Michael Jordan, in my mind, being the greatest, but not throwing any shade on LeBron James because he's the worthy number 2. That during the LeBron James era, there were debates as to whether or not he was the best in the world because Kobe was still playing at one time. Tim Duncan was still playing for a large chunk of that time. And ultimately, Steph Curry has been playing a large chunk of that time. Do you know that when Michael Jordan was playing, there was never a debate ever as to who was the best in the world? Did you know that? There was never a debate. Even before Michael Jordan won the title in 91, from 88 on, it was clear that Michael Jordan, even with Larry Bird or Magic Johnson winning championships, it was clear that Michael Jordan was the best player in the world. Larry Bird called him God in gym shorts.
Before LeBron James was called the king, before Kobe Bryant studied the fadeaway frame by frame, and before Stephen Curry made deep three-pointers look routine, there was one name that didn't just dominate basketball. It defined it: Michael Jordan. He wasn't simply part of a debate. He became the standard everyone else would be judged against. This conversation isn't about counting stats or measuring longevity. It's about impact. Jordan changed the league so dramatically that every superstar who followed has been compared to the shadow he left behind. For years, Stephen A. Smith has repeated that same message, arguing that Jordan wasn't just the greatest player. He was the blueprint that shaped modern basketball. According to Stephen A., everything that came after feels like a variation of what Jordan already perfected. That's why when people place LeBron in the same debate, Stephen A. often stops the discussion immediately, not out of hate, but because he believes history already speaks for itself. In his view, Jordan played with a level of cold precision and killer instinct that the modern era still hasn't truly reproduced, which is exactly why his most powerful quotes about the Jordan versus everyone debate continue to ignite conversations about basketball greatness. Because if you're tired of polished stories and rewritten history, then you already know true greatness doesn't need marketing or hype. Stephen A. Smith often begins with a blunt truth many people avoid. During his prime, Michael Jordan wasn't just better than everyone else. He felt untouchable. His reputation alone could shake teams before the opening tip, and even legends admitted it openly. Larry Bird once described him as God disguised as a basketball player, while Magic Johnson acknowledged that Jordan had passed everyone in the game. According to Stephen A., Jordan dominated the league so completely that the entire basketball world seemed to revolve around him. He argues that Jordan faced fierce rivals and real resistance, creating an atmosphere where opponents genuinely feared him. When comparisons are made with LeBron James, Stephen A. says the context is different, not as an insult, but as a reminder of how overwhelming Jordan's presence felt during his era. While Jordan ruled the court, few people questioned his place at the top. There were no constant debate panels or endless arguments about who was the best, just one player consistently taking over the league night after night. For Stephen A., the fact that the debate still exists today only shows how far opinions have drifted from what many witnessed firsthand. Jordan's greatness was never theoretical, it was undeniable. For Stephen A. Smith, the reality has always been simple. During his era there was Michael Jordan, and then there was daylight. Jordan's greatness felt so obvious that few people questioned who ruled the league. When Stephen A. talks about legacy, he stresses that Jordan never waited for leadership to be handed to him. He seized it and dominated. He didn't win quietly either. He crushed dynasties, overwhelmed elite teams, and broke the confidence of star opponents without switching franchises or building super alliances. Of course, LeBron James has had a remarkable career, but Stephen A. points out that it has also included difficult moments where pressure took over. When he asks why LeBron's name is constantly placed next to Jordan's, he's echoing a feeling many fans have, that the modern conversation sometimes rushes to crown a new king while overlooking the man who set the original standard. In his view, Jordan didn't chase greatness. He created it from the ground up. That's why Stephen A. often describes Jordan not as part of the journey, but as the final destination that every player since has been trying to reach. And then comes what Stephen A. Smith calls the coldest truth of all. Michael Jordan finished his career with nothing left to regret. 6 finals appearances, 6 championships, 6 finals MVPs, and not a single Game 7 needed to decide it. That level of dominance is difficult to argue against. While the legacy of LeBron James is still evolving with every season, Jordan's story feels complete. He even stepped away from the game at his peak, returned later, and still delivered unforgettable performances as if time hadn't slowed him down. Stephen A. often points out that Jordan approached every game like a battle. If an opponent challenged him or talked trash, it only made him more dangerous. Players like Clyde Drexler and Gary Payton experienced that competitive fire firsthand, and moments like the famous finals shot over Brian Russell became permanent highlights in basketball history. Jordan took every slight personally and answered it the only way he knew, by dominating on the scoreboard. It wasn't about branding or attention, it was simply the intensity that defined him, a mentality that made every game feel like a mission to prove he was unstoppable. Michael Jordan would have hated the softer tone of today's game because he never stepped on the court to make friends. He stepped on it to dominate. That's a point Stephen A. Smith repeats constantly. No one has truly matched that cold competitive fury. Kobe Bryant studied Jordan's footwork and mindset, and LeBron James has produced legendary moments of his own, but the relentless fire that defined Jordan remains unmatched. To him, basketball wasn't just a sport, it was a mission. From the moment he entered the league, Jordan carried the mentality of an assassin. He didn't ease into the NBA or slowly find his place. He arrived like a storm, studying veterans, identifying weaknesses, and attacking without hesitation. He didn't rely on alliances or avoid challenges. Instead, he welcomed the pressure, took control of the game, and targeted the pride of anyone standing in his way. Jordan didn't grow into greatness, he arrived with it. Where others showed potential, Jordan showed purpose, and that difference becomes obvious the moment you watch the film. Every jumper, every dunk, every defensive stop carried a personal edge. Stephen A. often emphasizes that players like Jordan aren't meant to be endlessly compared, they are meant to be recognized for what they were. Jordan didn't negotiate outcomes, he eliminated opponents, surviving one of the toughest eras the league had ever seen and leaving behind a standard that still defines greatness today. The era of Michael Jordan was brutal, elbows flying, hard fouls, even blood on the floor. Teams like the Detroit Pistons and their bad boy style tried to break him physically, yet he kept returning stronger. He battled legends such as Magic Johnson, Charles Barkley, Patrick Ewing, and Reggie Miller, players who competed with relentless intensity and wanted to stop him at any cost. When analysts like Stephen A. Smith compare that era with the journey of LeBron James, they point out the contrast. It's not meant as disrespect, but as historical context. Jordan fought through a league that often felt designed to test your toughness at every step, climbing a mountain filled with fierce rivals and leaving championships behind. LeBron's career has been extraordinary in its own right, marked by longevity and greatness, but Stephen A. argues that Jordan's path was defined by harsher battles and relentless resistance. That's why his 6 championships still carry such weight today, and why the debate continues. In the end, the real question becomes simple. Do we measure greatness by longevity and consistency, or by the level of dominance and fear a player creates? Stephen A. has made his stance clear, and that's exactly why the discussion around basketball's greatest player never seems to fade. Stephen A. Smith says it directly. The journey of LeBron James may have been remarkable, but the path of Michael Jordan was far more brutal. In Stephen A.'s view, that difference matters because Jordan didn't just dominate the league, he helped build the modern NBA itself. When he argues that Jordan paved the way for the massive deals and global fame enjoyed by stars like LeBron, Stephen Curry, and Kevin Durant, he believes it's simply acknowledging history. Jordan transformed the image of basketball players around the world. Before his rise, athletes were mainly known for their performance on the court. After him, they became worldwide icons and powerful brands. The success of Air Jordan and the explosion of global endorsements showed how the sport could grow beyond arenas and television screens. Jordan didn't just play the game, he reshaped its culture, helping turn the NBA into an international phenomenon. That's why so many young stars now dream of building their own brand and legacy, following a path that Jordan helped create long before them. A According to Stephen A. Smith, what Michael Jordan did for basketball wasn't just impact, it was creation. He didn't simply raise the standard of the sport, he helped build the entire stage that today's superstars stand on. Stephen A. often jokes that modern players should be thanking Jordan every season because the global business of basketball, massive endorsements, worldwide fame, and signature brands like Air Jordan grew from the foundation he created. And then Stephen A. reminds everyone of another moment that still feels unbelievable. Even later in his career, Jordan stepped onto an NBA court and scored 40 points in a game, proving he could still challenge time itself. Most legends fade quietly as they age, but Jordan returned older and still capable of dominating professionals. It wasn't just a statistic, it was a statement that the competitive fire inside him hadn't disappeared. After walking away from the game more than once like a legend already complete, he came back without asking for sympathy or farewell celebrations. Instead, he competed the same way he always had, with intensity and confidence. That's why Stephen A. often repeats his sharpest point. Jordan wasn't built like everyone else. He didn't just survive time, he seemed to challenge it. For Stephen A. Smith, the real difference in basketball history is simple: the gap between the originator and the imitator. Players can study the fadeaway of Michael Jordan, wear his number, or try to build brands inspired by him, but they can't recreate the revolution he started.